Hey everybody, welcome back to Cinematically Late, the series dedicated to me talking about movies that I may have missed for whatever reason. Today is probably likely one of my most on-time Cinematically Lates, I suppose, as this movie did just recently come out. Today we are talking about The Little Things, which premiered on HBO Max as well as in theaters simultaneously, as the first release of 2021 that Warner Brothers is doing this. They did it most recently with Wonder Woman, but this is the first release of 2021. Now, before we get into a lot of the very heavy spoiler stuff, there will be a lot of spoilers in this episode. I do have a special guest with me, Miss Victoria. How are you today?
I'm well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming to the house that we share. So we want to talk about The Little Things. We obviously watched this together. So the gist of The Little Things is it's a crime thriller that has Denzel Washington and Rami Malek teaming up to track down a serial killer, serial killer in the 90s LA area, and it also has Jared Leto, who is potentially the killer. So do you want to talk about performances before we get into our big spoilery talk, or you just want to go right into it? And I hope that motorcycle that just went by didn't get picked up, but even if it did, it's staying in.
Sure. So one of the reasons why I was personally excited about this film is because after watching the trailer, I kind of got a feel that this was very much a film similar to Seven and Bone Collector and a lot of this really good, criminal thrillers out there. And it has an amazing, a ridiculously amazing cast. So I was really excited about it. Even as you start watching the film, you get that feeling of okay, I see. You definitely feel like you're watching a crime film. I think where it took me out of, okay, maybe this is not what I was expecting. It was closer to the end, maybe, on the third quarter of the film, that you're just like, what's going on? I personally still liked it, even though it took a turn that I wasn't necessarily expecting. But I know that was not the case for you.
No, it took me, to be honest, the part of the reason why this is so late is because it's taking me some time to decide on how I feel, to heal a bit. And it's not like anything that I'm healing from it is because it was overly gruesome or a heavy topic. It wasn't like
Prisoners.
Like Prisoners or The Lovely Bones, where it just sits
Shakes
with you
you
wrong.
to the
Yeah,
bone,
exactly.
yeah.
So with this one, it wasn't that case for me. It was more just the way that the ending was left so open, and there were some certain choices that I don't know if it sat right with me. But the more that I sort of sit and let it stew, I feel like the better the movie gets for some reason. I don't know if that makes any sense, even though I only watched it the one time. So that's been something. I think I've leaned a little bit more into thinking that I did like it more after the fact.
Yeah.
I tried to remain a little bit more neutral. But I think the more I think about it, the better. The more I agree with some of the choices that they made.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think that while I was confused towards the end, not because I didn't know what was happening, but confused as to why did they take this direction. I never really felt like I disliked it. I actually liked it a lot. I've been quoting it since day one, even though you weren't ready for that. There's a quote in the film that's in the trailer, I believe.
It's the title of the movie.
It's the title of the movie. Where Denzel Washington's character says, "It's the little things, Jimmy. It's the little things that get you caught." Jimmy is Rami Malek's character in the film. I think this is where I think a lot of people didn't like the film, or the reason why. When you watch these criminal movies, you like having kind of a formula where you kind of get to know the cop that's involved, with the detective that's involved, but they're also kind of troubled. They're dealing with something personal, whether it be a case that they couldn't solve, or they're retired and came back, something along those lines. It's like a troubled detective seeking justice or whatever.
One last case or something.
Yeah,
like
something
that.
like that. And then, they see this that touches them for whatever reason, because there's a connection to a previous case, or because it involves children, whatever it may be. And then, we meet the bad guy. And, we follow him till the end, and then you have like a 7 ending where you're like, what the hell? But you think bad guy is a bad guy, right? That's not what's happening in this film. And I think that's what took people for like a ride.
Yeah.
Honestly, because you want this person to be the bad guy so badly. Then when you don't know, then it's just like, what? Spoiler alert. We don't really know. Yeah, we're way past the spoilers, but we don't really know who the bad guy is in this film. We're not saying Jared Leto's character isn't the bad guy. We're just saying we don't know.
Yeah.
And that's what didn't sit right with people, I think.
Yeah, for me, I think that if they would have just alluded to him, even if they said that Jared Leto didn't do all of the killings, but maybe there was just like one nugget, that one piece that maybe it wasn't the nail in the coffin, it was something that like led you to believe, okay, this could definitely be him. And it's just like speculation, and just everything is circumstantial around his character. He's just a weird guy.
But I mean, if you really think about it, towards the end of the film, when the FBI guy is going over, the profile of this criminal, it matches Jared Leto's character. So I mean, we are kind of led to believe this could potentially be this person, but there's no confirmation, and people don't like that. We've grown so accustomed to having an ending, like whether it be happy or not so happy. We're so used to getting the answers that we're looking for. And when that doesn't happen, then it leaves you with this like ugly feeling of like, this was shit. I didn't like this movie at all. Why am I even here? And I think that's what you walked away with. I think you didn't like it because you're like, what the fuck is happening? Like, you don't get closure, I think.
Yeah, there really wasn't any closure. I did appreciate, I think, the burden that Denzel Washington's character tried to relieve Rami Malek's character of. And it's funny because after the movie ended, I went back and literally like was scrubbing through the movie on HBO Max to check. But what I'm talking about is the beret that Rami Malek knows that the girl he was looking for has, that very distinct feature. And Denzel Washington's character sends a beret to him, essentially making him believe that Jared Leto was indeed a killer. So, by the way, I don't know if we mentioned it, Rami Malek killed Jared Leto without not knowing if he was actually the killer. But he sends him a beret, so thus believing that in his possessions was the beret that belonged to the girl he's looking for, thus giving the closure that he killed a bad guy. But come to find out, he had purchased a pack of berets and sent it to her. Now, when I went back and scrubbed through it, the beret that he sent him is exactly
identical
to the same beret that the girl was wearing in that scene where she's like jogging with her friends, like, oh, I'll see you later, whatever. And then the car follows her. So I did double check. That is the same beret. So I think with that small detail, unless Denzel Washington got lucky or had some kind of confirmation that we knew what the beret looked like, because we didn't know what it looked like, other than because I had to go back to rewatch that scene to even remember what it was.
I knew right away that was the same beret, because I was left with that same question of how did he know what the beret looked like? Because what I would have done had this been a decision that I made, I would have in the film, I would have shot the scene with a red beret, but that wasn't the red beret that we saw earlier in the film.
That's what I thought would have made more sense. Like, if it wasn't
because
the same
sending the exact same beret just leaves some more questions than answers. Because we understand the sentiment behind what he did, but how did he know?
Yeah.
I mean, not all the berets in the 90s look the same. I'm just saying, like, how would he have known? It's it's
It's
odd.
too much
It's
of
like
a
an
coincidence.
odd, yeah.
Like it.
Unless it was done on purpose and they're trying to tell us something through that moment, then I don't really see the point of having used the exact same bread.
I think if maybe if that was like the smoking gun, if it was or was not him type of thing, like if it was definitely a different Barrett, then he didn't do it maybe. But obviously Denzel Washington was sending it to him. It wasn't necessarily in Jared Leto's possession.
Well, that's not where I'm going with it, though. Where I'm going with this is Denzel Washington's character involved?
Yeah, I mean that
because you're
definitely
saying like
is
it's definitely
to...
not him, but that wouldn't matter regardless of the way that the bread looks. The point of the bread was to make Rami Malek's character believe that he had killed the right person, the right bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
The way that the bread looks is irrelevant
Mm-hmm.
in whether Jared Leto's character is at fault or not.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is, how does Denzel Washington's character know what the bread looked like unless he knew from pictures, which the parents only said, hey, she always wears a red beret, but they didn't know for pictures.
And even in the videos or whatever that Rami Malek's watching of her, like when he's sitting with her parents, it's just her face and her like in a pool or whatever. Like we don't see this Brett any other time except for when she's jogging. So I just find it to be such a weird...
To me, it was just a simple like continuity mistake. That's what I'm alluding it to.
I don't know. I feel like there could have been so much more there. But maybe I'm just trying to find the answer in the haystack. Like, I just want so very much like the characters. I want so much, so desperately for an answer that I'll just start grasping at straws. Yeah,
and I think this is my other theory about why people didn't like this. It's because there's nothing more uncomfortable than grappling with the fact that sometimes we go a little too far to get the answers that we want. Even if we have to twist reality to fit our own narrative. So we wanted to find, or let's say, assuming that, we were in the film, we're not in the film, but as the audience watching this happening, we wanted someone to be held responsible for these awful, awful crimes. That whenever someone semi-fits that mold, we grasp onto that so hard because it makes more sense to blame this person than to have this unknown force committing all these crimes. And I think that what makes it difficult for people to deal with is that this happens in real life all the time, where people are wrongfully accused of a crime because they just fit their narrative. And it's easier to have someone to put the blame on than to explain to a family member of the case you're handling and say, tough shit, like we don't know who it was. And I think that's what this movie does. It forces you to deal with, was this person even at fault, or were we just judging them on being weird?
And I think that was probably honestly one of my favorite things about the movie.
Same.
Like it was like, it's such a double-edged sort of a type of movie for me, because like I didn't like it because it didn't give me the answer, but I liked it because you don't know. Like you kind of just have to... I think this is probably one of the most... I'm not a cop, so one of the most like realistic depictions of like a crime, trying to solve a crime, like being a detective. Like sometimes you're not going to get your man, or sometimes the person that you want it to be isn't going to fit that, and like it's... Or
simply isn't.
Yeah.
Sometimes who you really think it is, it's not.
Yeah. And it's a really tough thing to grapple with, because I think as humans we are so constantly desperately seeking answers to various things, solving a puzzle like a crime or anything like that, to secrets of the universe, why are we here type of things. Like we have always been like curious and wanting to find an answer to what A plus B is, and like it's like one of those inherent things in us. And I think that because there is no answer there, it's unknown, and whoever wrote this probably did write an ending where it was him, maybe wrote an ending where it wasn't him, all these different scenarios. But the best one to go through to keep it's been sitting with me for days, I keep thinking about it sometimes, and I think that's what makes this a good movie, and that's why I lean towards liking it,
So it
because
stays with you.
yeah, it does stay with you. It's not like something where it's like, okay,
Moving on.
yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
it definitely is one of those things, and I think it very much like Seven and the characters in Seven. I felt like this movie almost identically.
Identically, yes.
It doesn't sound right when I say it.
Yeah.
Identically matches Seven, because you have the older character who's kind of like we were saying.
Yeah, it's
like
following
one
that
last
formula.
time.
Yeah.
There's the younger guy, but in this one they're both kind of like the hot shots, but for like different reasons, I think. And then there's like the bad guy who's, you know, very creepy, but this one obviously there's no definitive answer, whereas in Seven there was more of a definitive answer. And it's just one of those things that like it's so parallel, but at the same time it kind of offshoots. And
in this film it's much worse, because in Seven, Kevin Spacey's character is actually arrested on charges. When you look at Jared Leto's character, he doesn't even get arrested. He comes in willingly the first time. He's like, I'm not under arrest. I know I'm not.
Yeah.
And the second time, Rami Malek's character gets in the car with him willingly. Like this, there was not even enough evidence to arrest this person. Was he creepy? 100%. Could he potentially be the criminal? 100%. But there wasn't any evidence.
Yeah.
They just wanted him to fit the narrative so badly. Again, there's a very big chance that he was, but to point fingers at someone and blame them for something without knowing is the doom of our society. Like, we do this all the time in real life. And I think beyond seeking answers, because we are inherently like curious creatures, is that we cannot as a society move on and seek closure and healing and moving on without our sense of justice. And as a family member of someone who got murdered horribly or is missing or whatever, we want justice so that we can move on. And when you can't provide that, or when you're the detective in charge of providing a family member with that closure, or bringing this person to justice, and you can't do that, you will grasp onto anything. But we cannot do that. You know, and I think that's the thing. That's why this movie stays with you. It forces you to think, okay, we hated this guy from the get-go. We're like, this is a slimy motherfucker. But then it's like, now he's dead. And we'll never know. You know? Just because we judged him on the way that he lived or his preferences or whatever.
But I have to give for sure kudos to part of the reason why this movie sat so long with me and has sat so long with me. Denzel Washington, he's great. Rami Malek is Rami Malek, he's good. But this was probably the best and weirdest Jared Leto.
100%.
And like the way like he just does things, and I think you were mentioning like the contacts or whatever he was wearing, the way his eyes sort of like looked, the way he like walked differently, carried himself differently.
And that's why his character reminds me so much of the Night Stalker. The Night Stalker, I think, gets referenced in the film, if I'm not wrong. Maybe I'm wrong, but the way that the victims describe the Night Stalker, they say that he had like a dead stare. You know, like you would look at him and like it was just blackness, you know, like dead. And you look at Jared Leto's character and you get that something's off feeling. Because we're so used to seeing Jared Leto with his little blue eyes and his, you know, cute little clean hair, and he's a very attractive guy. And then all of a sudden you see him with like this greasy hair, eyes that aren't the color that his real eyes are, and he just looks so creepy.
And then he does creepy things too, like even when they're showing him like photos and when he's at the police station, they're saying he starts to like get aroused, and like he definitely acts very strangely. And then even when there's the scene where he calls the police to his house and they all start like swarming and stuff, and Denzel Washington's trying to get out, that he just came from a bar or whatever, and he has like the Shirley Temple and like a to-go cup. No, he just kind of like creepily waves at Remy Malek's character. I think that was probably one of the weirdest. That part, and like the whole thing about like the trunk space, and like when he's following Denzel in the car, and like he pulls up by him, and after like they switch sides like 3 times, which was kind of confusing of a scene for me. And there's just creepy.
He is
guy.
creepy, 100%, and I think like. But they also kind of touch upon like mishandling of justice, right? For example, letting a witness be exposed to a potential like suspect in a police station completely ruins your chances of using that victim or that witness later.
Very true, but I mean, it wasn't like they purposefully did that. I mean,
but
I think
he told the lady, "Do not let her out of your sight.
Hmm.
Do not let her go on her own." But she goes on her own, and sure enough, comes into contact with this person. Mm-hmm. It's the little things, Jimmy. It's the little things that will get you caught. And it's just like, that's the thing. It's like, it's little things like that that will ruin an entire investigation. You and I just watched the Night Stalker documentary on Netflix. Yeah. You saw how a second can make the investigation go on for years rather than, months when you make little mistakes like that. Yeah. And I think this movie was so good at highlighting those mishandling of justice. I don't know. I really loved the way that this movie presented how quickly we are to jump to conclusions sometimes, and how little mistakes like that can cost literal lives, and mistakes that even the cops are making, both on the Denzel Washington's character's side and Rami Malek's side, because of judgment. Granted. Was this guy fucking weird? 100%. Could he potentially be the criminal? 100%. But we don't know for a fact. So just assuming that because he kind of matches the puzzle piece that we're looking for is not the right thing to do. Especially because towards the end, when he makes Rami Malek's character dig through that big, I don't know what to call it, like blank area, like ranch area that they were at. He tells him, "I've never killed a person in my entire life." Like, and he sounds like in that moment, he sounds so genuine, like as to say, "I'm fucking with you because you've been fucking with me," for no reason, just because. Oh, I like crime stuff. Like the guy had a police radar thingy radio in his house, and clearly he's like a crime junkie guy, and maybe gets aroused by these things, and I'm not saying that that's the right thing to do, or like a very nice trait to have, but that doesn't make you a murderer. And
I think I just find it so strange, like if this was something that you believe, or that the cops are after you for, right? That they have you 90%, but obviously not the 10% in suspicion, but maybe it's all circumstantial, but that final piece they need but can't get. Like, why take the risk of putting a cop in your car, driving him out to the middle of nowhere, having him dig randomly? Like, what good could have come out of that for Jared Leto's character? And why continue to egg him on?
The only reason
even before that, because before he said he didn't kill anybody, he also said some other things that kind of made you believe that he did kill the girl he was looking for.
To me, he was just playing games with a cop. I think he knew that he was in the position to do that. But there's something that I just thought about that we hadn't discussed. At the beginning of the film, they talk about bite marks, right? Which they never get kind of like talked about again. But he says he knew who this person was. Like they all knew who this person was. They knew this person. They willingly went along with him, right? And in the case of the sex workers that are the victims of the first, of when Denzel Washington was on the case, that wasn't the case for the more recent girls. They weren't sex workers. So he knew these girls somehow.
Well, I mean, like the one girl that gets killed had her fridge or whatever worked on, her appliance, and he worked for a company that had like had a work order thing.
But they didn't come in. Remember? Because he said something along the lines
the order had gotten canceled.
Yeah. Like so he never went.
I don't know.
There's just a lot of unanswered questions, I think, in this film. I mean, we can't.
There's a lot of different things, like that definitely don't sit right, and it's kind of like difficult to.
I think they kind of.
We get so focused on the end that everything else we forget.
It's like a volleyball game. You're like, it's him, and you're like, but is he? Well, yeah, 100%. But I'm sure. You spend the entire movie going, it's 100% him. Yeah. Well, maybe it's not. No, definitely him. And I think that's what's so unsettling about the way that the story's told. Overall, I personally liked it. I like that it takes you out of your comfort zone a little bit. Mm-hmm. Which, you're not gonna get a happy ending every time. You're not gonna get the answers all the time, and that's something you gotta have. You have to make amends with, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I think, like I said, it definitely pushed me. The more I think about it, into liking it more than disliking it. Mm-hmm. But I think just that knee-jerk initial reaction. Huh?
Hopefully I convinced you.
You did convince me. But I think just like, if I'm going to watch it again, it's more to obviously sift through like the details of it and Jared Leto's performance. I think that's the main two reasons. But there are all sorts of interesting things. Like you're saying, sorry. I just popped. Like you were saying about like the bite marks thing, and how I thought it was so interesting. Like when he stole Jared Leto's like trash bag, and then like he had found like a piece of pizza or something like that, and took it to the lady to like check it. She's like, it's inconclusive because whatever, and then it's like it's also like hard to tell because he like folds his pizza in half or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know why I thought that was like such an interesting like little thing, like because you can't get the same if you eat it normal versus fold it in half.
Not only that, but I think it also kind of gives you a bit of a glimpse of what goes on behind some of these investigations, how complex just doing any type of like evidence analysis can be. Mm-hmm. It's very difficult. Like to learn to differentiate between this is a bite mark and this was folded in half. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, it's a hard movie.
She also says he's from the Northeast. He folds his pizza in half.
Yeah.
Like just to make that assessment
just
about
talking
someone.
About it makes you want to rewatch it just to sift through all the.
Make that assessment about someone based on the way that they eat their pizza. Or the way that the FBI can come up with an entire like criminal profile, based solely on the way that they commit their crimes. Whether they're an only child, the FBI says we're probably looking at an only child. I'm like, what the hell? It's like Mike Hunters, like stuff like that. Like it's just, it's insane how accurate they are too.
Yeah, for sure.
Like how we think we're unique, but we're also very predictable.
Yeah.
And it's easy to like.
It's like TikTok.
Yeah.
Like we all think we have like these unique childhoods and experiences, and then you go on TikTok. It's like, didn't you have this time? I'm like, oh my god, I thought I was the only person.
Yeah. So you find out that you're not special at all.
Yeah, and they're just another grain of sand.
And that it's actually a lot easier to categorize human behavior than we think. And like, there's only so many options. Only so many options.
For sure. All right. Well, I think that pretty much wraps up all the things I had to get out.
Watch the film.
Yeah, definitely watch it. Interpret it for yourself. Let me know in the comment section if you have watched it or after you're done watching it, what you think. If you agree with us, disagree with us. Okay, before we go though, we have to make our final assessment. Did Jared Leto do it?
I don't know. I think the logical person in me wants to say, I will not point fingers at him unless I have evidence in front of me that points to him being guilty, besides circumstantial evidence. Because that's a problem though, is that the circumstantial evidence that they have isn't even strong enough for you to say, because you have some crimes where there's so, like, an overwhelming amount of circumstantial evidence where you're like, there's no fucking way. But in this case, it was just like, oh, he had clippings of the news stories. Yeah, very crime 101. You know, it's like, I don't know. He was slimy and weird and got a boner talking about a crime. 100% that's weird. But that doesn't make you a criminal. People are into a lot of crazy shit.
Yeah.
So I want to say I don't know. I wanted
well, of course
him.
We don't know, but
Yeah, I wanted it to be him so badly because he's fucking creepy.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's enough to say whether someone's guilty or not. A part of me feels that he isn't the one.
No. Maybe I can.
But then you have things like, oh, he's the one that went to work on the fridge. But what does that mean? If someone comes and fixes my fridge tomorrow and something happens to me, God forbid, then they're gonna, you know, like, that's also not good enough. So I'm gonna say the ideal answer for me is I don't fucking know. Honestly, I don't have enough evidence to say. But I like to think that it wasn't him.
No.
Because that would make the whole justice system look even worse than it already is.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of here for it, you know?
I kind of feel like I understand where you're coming from, but I feel like he did do it. I don't know. They're just like one of those like feeling type of things. But maybe that's just what the movie made us want to feel.
I want to go back and watch it and watch the opening scene. Because I think the opening scene is going to tell us a lot more than we think. Do you remember how Jared Leto's character has a very specific way that he walks?
Yeah.
He kind of, I don't know how to describe it.
He walks with his feet like very open.
Yeah.
Like,
I was going to say that he has like a limp, but it's not a limp. It's like he just kind of has his wobbling situation.
That's kind of like the way, like his body and like the way he carries his weight differently, I think.
Do you remember you were like, what's he walking on that? I'm like, it's probably Jared Leto making up a fucking
just
character.
being method.
Yeah. But we see the guy at the beginning of the film walking around.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a little things, Jimmy.
Because if I remember correctly, he just walks normal, but he does walk very slow, similar in the pattern. But I don't know if he walks very open, like with his feet in the beginning. I don't know. I'll have to go back and rewatch it. But anyway, we're just going off.
Please tell us in the comments after you watch this film whether you think there's enough circumstantial evidence, because I'll tell you right now there will not be solid evidence for you to make a decision on. But if you think, based on the circumstantial evidence presented in the film, whether you think Jared Leto's characters did it or not.
There you have it, folks.
What's your answer?
Oh, my answer? I think he did it. I just want him to be the one. I feel like it's just like all right there. And I think, like I was saying, I feel like that's what the movie pushes you to do. So part of me wants to say he didn't because the evidence isn't there. But they keep pushing me in that direction. So I feel like
that's a point, though. That's the whole point. Do you remember how
I'm susceptible?
That's what Washington's character says. Give me 5 minutes in his apartment, and I know I'll find the answers. Yeah. He finds that little treasure box, but there's nothing in it.
He spends all night in it.
There's nothing in his apartment that tells him that he did anything.
It's true.
And yet we still blame him. He gets murdered.
Yeah.
Murked him.
I have to go back because I think it might come back to some little details, like you said, little things. Because, for example, the car.
I think the answer's in the movie. We just haven't
Yeah, like the car that's in the beginning, the way he walks, the car that picks up the girl with the red beret. Those the little things. Literally, it comes back to the title of the movie.
Dude, next time we watch this movie, I'm gonna take fucking notice we'll watch the movie. And just dissect every little thing that they do.
The license plate
I'm gonna
number.
find the answers whether it's the last thing I do.
I wonder if they actually have an answer in there without us, and they make you rewatch it. If they just literally edit it so detailed.
I think the answer is in the movie. We'll know when we rewatch it.
Right.
We'll add an update in the comments.
We'll do an update. But yeah, I think we've rambled on for long enough. But yes, definitely let us know what your thoughts and opinions are in the comment section down below. Make sure to hit the likes button, subscribe, as well as hit the notification bell so you don't miss out any future videos from me or when Victoria's on the channel, of course.
Of course.
She's always in the background and behind the scenes helping me with things here and there. But, We like to have her on the show every so often to get our opinions.
Why, thank you, mister.
Other than that, thank you guys so much for watching, or in this case, listening. And I hope to see you guys in the next video.
Bye, guys.